I'm still here.
Sam's still here.
And we've got much more to talk about as well.
Yeah, mysteriously my drink has filled up.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how that happened.
maybe we stopped recording from the last episode and we refilled the drinks.
Don't.
That could be. Don't break the immersion. Don't pull the curtain back. They can never know.
Yeah, so if you haven't listened to the last episode or watched the last episode, make sure you do.
Check it out.
It was good, yeah. We got deep and personal about all kinds of Japan lore that we didn't really plan to get into.
Yeah, definitely not. It kind of went off the cuff into quite serious discussion and look at...
Yeah, but it was good.
Flaws
We got to sort of hear Sam's experiences of daily life in Japan, what it's really like on the ground.
What it feels like to actually be out there in person.
Yeah, it was good. So
nice.
This episode, we're going to continue to that discussion, but we're going to talk more about the weird, the wacky, the wonderful parts of Japan.
Side of Japan, yeah. We decided that what we need to do is really hit that algorithm. So we thought, well, what's the best way to get quick clicks? Weird stuff in Japan, let's go.
Yeah. Seems to work every time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll talk about that, and
we'll probably go off piste and
probably
talk about some other stuff as well.
Yeah,
but
let's get into it.
Let's dive in. So, I have a question for you to start off with.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And that's, we talked a bit about stereotypes last time and what kind of things that you maybe have seen about Japan that maybe aren't true. Has there ever been anything that you've seen maybe on Twitter or Facebook or on a documentary that is about Japan and is very strange and you've thought, wow, that's a bit bizarre, and then you've just kind of left it, you haven't read up extra on it or you've not followed up?
That's tricky because we do talk a lot, and usually I'll ask you things and I'll get you to sort of explain stuff. But so there's nothing that I haven't learned more about, and I think I have a better grasp on. But it's worth bringing up. Something that comes to mind in particular is, I'm not going to remember the Japanese word for it. Do you want to try and guess it?
Hikikomori.
Hikikomori.
Right. So hikikomori being people who are not in education.
Yeah.
Or training. Like this shut-in, stay-at-homes.
Shut-in, stay-at-homes, that whole thing. Like, so, if you've ever watched anime, there are quite a few that sort of demonstrate this and sort of show this in different ways.
Yep.
I think there's been documentaries, quite a few documentaries about this sort of thing going on. And I still find it really hard to grasp that idea that this goes on.
Yeah, that so many people can just be like, I choose to just stay at home.
Yeah, it just feels very dystopian, almost like otherworldly. Like this is a like Ready Player One.
Yeah,
that sort of vibe where it's just
everyone's plugged in.
Everyone's plugged in,
disengaged with reality.
Exactly. Yeah, it's reached a point where. And this is it's usually the case that these people, the reason they've ended up in this situation, or part of the reason, is that they don't need to go to work. They are funded by parents, or they are funded in some way, whatever it may be, so that they
some sort of an allowance
to so that they don't have to do that. And it's that idea. And I guess there was a Black Mirror episode where it's just a case of you go to work and you do the biking to charge everything, and that idea where the society
points, right?
Yeah. Society is so autonomous that really jobs have become a bit obsolete. And
well, I think with hikikomori, a lot of K's in that word, a bit difficult. The reason that it comes about is because those who choose to become hikikomori have been disillusioned with either the Japanese education system or with the idea that they have to go and become this drone at work.
So have you got like 6-year-olds doing this?
Not really. It's usually...
That was an absolute joke, but the way you hesitated there. How young does
it start?
Yeah, because I figured this was like an adult decision.
Often you'll find it at high school age. That's usually the first time it happens.
So
generally, kids will... And a lot of the kids... Maybe it's because they've stood out in a way that maybe isn't beneficial. Maybe they're overweight, or maybe they've got educational learning problems, and they're not performing in a way, and they get bullied by their peers, and they choose, instead of going and suffering through this bullying, because Japanese kids can be absolutely brutal.
Well, we talked a little bit about this last time
yeah.
about the bullying culture and workplace bullying and things like that.
If you stand out, then you are kind of bullied either back into line or bullied to the point where you are just kicked from the group.
Okay.
And in this case, one of the coping mechanisms that some people use is to
just
shut off and become a hikikomori. And a lot of the time, parents will understand this in terms of they understand how harsh it can be to be this outsider and get.
Okay, so that was my next question.
The focus
parental involvement.
Often it's because it's better for the parent for their child to either live at home with them and they just keep on raising them and giving them food and paying an allowance and
They're
stuff.
not a hamster, like.
Well, it's almost basically turns into that, like, because it's better for the parent rather than have their kid go to school or go to
Cause them issues.
Yeah, and cause them shame and not be.
Oh right, so it's a closet child. It's like you're an embarrassment. I'm gonna allow you to do this because it brings shame on me in the family.
Well, maybe not in every single case, but in the majority of cases.
In a stereotypical kind of case, is it a stereotype?
I wouldn't say maybe.
Do you think it is common?
I think it is fairly common. There's a lot of people who are neats and who don't engage with regular schooling, and it is because they.
So, the stereotypical part, the bit I'm trying to.
About the word the parents are shameful, I think it's unfortunately quite true.
Yeah.
And again,
do you think it's a reasonable assumption?
I think it is a reasonable assumption.
Yeah. Based on what you know of people.
Of people. But I've seen, and I've spoken to people, co-workers whose children have taken this path.
Really? Okay.
And their child, even as young as 9, who has decided that they don't like.
So is education not compulsory?
Yesn't.
Yesn't. Isn't that the problem then?
You have to go to school, and if you don't attend school, the school will ring home, and then if they ring home and chat to the parents, and they say, "Oh, well, he doesn't want to come," what sometimes happens is that the teacher from the school will go to the house, say, "Oh, can I come and see little Jim, little Takaru or whatever his name is," and then the teacher will chat to them, say, "Hey, you should come back. It'll be better when you come back." But they don't. It seems that the teacher doesn't really do much outside of ticking a box. Oh, I went to see them, and they still said they didn't want to come back. You don't force them to come back.
No.
There's no fine.
There's no legal ramifications. Like in the UK, parents,
you're fined.
You're fined, and parents can go to prison if
kids don't go.
If they are for no reason stopping their children.
Social services will get called. And this is something that
it's incredibly robust system for trying to keep kids in education.
It's all to support the children and to make sure that they are okay. But in this roundabout way, social services doesn't really get involved in that aspect of things, and the parents would rather, again, not bother people, and just if the kid's happy staying at home playing video games and eating junk food, then we'll just keep the kid at home. And
we said we weren't going to get onto it, but it's that idea of conformity, isn't it? It's out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. And worryingly, this happens a lot, and it is quite strange and a bit bizarre to think about so many people who just choose not to engage with the country that they're in. But it's a systematic issue. It's a bit weird.
Okay, so let's move on from that. That was a nice little delve, and somehow ended back on last episode. Right, what would you say then are some of the weird and wacky things? Like, there's obviously.
So easy one to start off with is going to Akihabara in Tokyo, which is the super geek nerd mecca, where there's big anime posters on the sides of skyscrapers, there's arcades around every corner.
Okay.
And for me, the weirdest part of that place is
that you don't live there.
Is that I don't live in Akihabara and I can't just go there every day. I would be flat broke in like no time.
It's expensive.
No, it's expensive. It's just that I would make poor financial decisions if I went to that place.
Yeah.
Anime figures.
I could quite easily see. I mean, if that was in the West, like that would be probably 10 times the price, I imagine.
Oh yeah. Because just from shipping it in and
no, I just mean extortion.
I mean, it's just straight extortion.
Any sort of popular attraction is going to be if it's sought after, it goes up in prices. Yeah. It's just commerce. I imagine because it's such a part of the culture, it's probably reasonable.
It is reasonably priced. Like all the arcades, most machines are like 100 to 300 yen a pop,
which is
probably about like just like under £1.
Okay.
Like if you're putting 100 yen into a machine, that's about 60p.
Yeah. Okay.
And you get a full free play. And the claw machines out there are much more generous with
good. Yes.
their prizes and winning. And you can call for help and get people to move stuff to make it easier for you.
Oh, really?
As well, if you do a little sumimasen, then someone can come over and reset the box to be easier to grab or push out and stuff.
Oh.
That's great.
That's
really
cool.
Nice. But the weirdest thing about that place, it's great in so many other ways.
Yeah.
But the weird and wacky thing that kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit there is the Maid Cafes.
Okay.
It's the fact that there are... and there's lots of themed cafes, and themed cafes are more popular in the UK now. Like you get dog cafes and frog cafes and rabbit cafes. But
what?
What?
Dog cafes?
Frog cafes.
And...
rabbits cafes.
What do you mean?
Like, just you go in and there's a dog there and you can pet the dog.
Oh, yeah. No, we have those here now, though.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Right. Sorry. I drifted.
But in terms of these maid cafes,
yes.
It is young Japanese girls who are dressed up in a traditional...
Of legal age?
I would hope so, but I have heard stories that sometimes maybe not.
Okay.
Because it's like a part-time job, so they don't... And they're not serving alcohol. So in some of these establishments, you can get maid-themed adult bars where obviously they are of age. But for this example, it is a young Japanese girls dressed up in basically fetish clothing, inviting you in to have coffee and maybe a snack or some lunch.
Yeah.
And they speak in a really cutesy way. They call you master, and they speak like they're in an anime, and it is just... When you see this in an anime show, even if you don't understand Japanese fluently, like, you kind of get it. It makes sense because it's a cartoon. When you hear that exact same line being said by a real flesh and blood human being, in a cutesy little voice, and then they're drawing little love hearts on your omelette and calling you master, I almost die of secondhand embarrassment. Just kind of like like when they approach, and they will approach you on the street. They will come up to you to give you a flyer, and they'll do the whole little cutesy song and dance, and they'll tilt their head to the side, and and it just feels
wrong,
bad. Like, you know, when there was that one kid in your class who would like pretend to be Goku, and everybody would kind of laugh at them as he like does his Kamehameha and stuff. That was me.
It was you. I know.
It's a traumatic time.
I was waiting for the moment I was going to say that was you.
But like, seeing somebody do that is a bit kind of like, ooh, that's a bit weird.
Is it?
Oh, I mean, when you're young,
I think that's some personal
just
stuff
getting involved.
I think that's something you're dealing with, because I wouldn't have said so. I think that's fine.
I guess you get kids jumping around being Spider-Man as well. So
for me, it was Power Rangers. It was James Bond. Like the amount of times I played spy, and sort of like I think imagination, kids, it's fine.
Fair play. Okay, but now imagine that in the body of like a young teenager.
Yeah.
And it's like, and obviously the other thing about that is that the clientele are often...
Yeah?
I'll say it, the clientele are often people that don't have girlfriends or would find it difficult to get girlfriends. Maybe they're... Socially awkward, maybe they're a bit overweight, and they go to this place, I guess, to kind of get that affection. Okay, so without offending anyone, it's just people who, for one reason or another... Want some attention. Feel they want attention, and they for some reason don't have the confidence or haven't had luck with women or partners, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have to say I would never have known about these cafes before I knew you. Yeah. I wouldn't say these were one of these misconceptions that people have, because for most people... We don't know they exist. They don't know they exist. This is dark side of Japan. This is you open people's minds with this kind of stuff. You know, we were talking to someone earlier today, and you know they'd never heard of these cafes, and I think it's a very unusual situation, and I would love to learn more. Like, I'm not saying you need to sort of just, because I don't know how much. Welcome to my new lecture, series about maid cafes in Japan. But I'd love to know more about like how they started. Like, when was the first maid cafe? That is a great question. And like, did it start from an innocent place, and did it then get corrupted as time went on, or like? What was the initial
mentality, I guess it must have been like, right, there are lots of lonely people. They might want some company. Let's have a place where they can come in, have a coffee, and you know what? Instead of just going back and serving the next person, we'll sit with them and have a chat.
Yeah.
Just literally company. You know, like we have, and not to sort of put the customers down even more, but over in this country, we'll have numbers you can phone for elderly people who live on their own and things like that if they need someone to talk to. So that whole concept doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah.
Somewhere you can go, have a chat. You know, we have charities and stuff.
Let's put them in fun outfits as well. So, you know, it makes us
distinct. That's the next step,
nice,
isn't it? That's when it's like, well, okay, these are the clientele we're getting. What do these people generally like? Are they like the animes? The animes.
And they like the animes.
The mangas.
And the mangas and maids. They like maids.
Maids.
I don't know why, but they really, really like maids.
Yes.
Too much.
And if they don't, they will soon.
They will soon.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to sort of learn more about that. Okay. So, Maid Cafes is definitely a big one.
Big weird one. Weird and wacky.
What do you think? What else? I mean, like, okay, here's one that I think everyone, not everyone, but loads of people will have an idea about Japan.
Yes.
Is the cosplay.
Yeah.
It's the walking down the street and you're seeing all different kinds of people. Everyone's unique. Everyone's got pink hair, blue hair, high heels, different outfits.
So let's get into that then. In terms of cosplay, do you mean cosplay at conventions or do you mean daily cosplay?
Daily cosplay. People out in just walking down the streets.
Okay. That's kind of a misconception.
Yeah.
That is a very, very, like, it is unlikely in the city that I live in. I live in Kobe. That you would see just on your daily commute, even in the city centre, somebody in full-on cosplay.
About as likely here?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just not a thing.
Not really. Unless you're going to Tokyo. Now in Tokyo, if you go to the Shibuya area or to Harajuku, which is like the Gwen Stefani song, you've got that wicked style.
Yes.
I love Gwen Stefani. Maybe that's where my love for Japan came from.
From Gwen Stefani?
Because she's obsessed with it. Like, she's all her songs are about how much she loves going to the fashion district of Harajuku and like dressing up and like those Japan girls have got the amazing style.
If you're turning off now, that's fine.
She's a great artist. Just give her a chance.
Gwen Stefani. I think I know that one song. What's the big song that?
The Bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
No!
Hollaback Girl.
Hollaback Girl, yes. Yeah.
So if you go to Harajuku,
yeah,
made famous by the Gwen Stefani song.
I did.
You find this is the place where people will do their daily cosplays.
Okay.
Maybe not as anime or manga characters, but they'll go for a specific style. So you've got again the Lolita style that we talked about earlier, the frilly dresses and
Lolita Grasshopper. Sorry, that's a Big Bang quote. Anyway, go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Lolita style, or you have people dressed as like
what's Lolita? I don't know what these things are. So you don't have to go into too much detail, but
briefly, Lolita style, like top hats, kind of Victorian era clothing.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Lots of frills and blacks. Gothic styles, you get Gyaru who like to have very tan skin, long nails, kind of very Americanized, and it's that area where you are most likely to see people just going around in these extravagant outfits.
Okay.
It's not something that you would find typically in your daily commute, especially in business-heavy areas or shopping areas.
Yeah.
And definitely not if you start going out into more rural areas. Like, obviously, if you're going to villages or towns, basically not a thing. It's non-existent.
Okay.
It's definitely kind of Tokyo-focused.
Yeah, so Tokyo's the other thing. Like, I think...
Tokyo's just weird.
No, but it does seem to be that all of this extravagant stuff happens around Tokyo. Like, and this is something that we spoke about earlier that I had no idea about, and just how dense Tokyo. I know it's a huge city. I know that it's got one of the biggest populations in the world. Yeah. Is it the biggest populated city?
I think it is the largest populated city because Japan's population is 125 million.
Yeah.
Tokyo, if we look at, there's a really good map I saw on Twitter the other day. It compares the area of Greater London, and then it shows Greater Tokyo basically taking up the entirety of the South and the Midlands. Like, Tokyo is almost the same size as like half of England.
And given England's south-north split, like... that's probably most of England.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the north is
there's stuff there.
There's stuff there.
It's dotted around.
But population-wise,
yeah,
it's very south heavy, or London heavy, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever.
A brilliant moment for me was when I went on holiday. The moment that I really decided that's why I want to go to Japan. I climbed the Tokyo Skytree, which used to be the tallest building in the world.
Skytree?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at the very top, you get this 360 view of the whole city.
Is that the one that looks like the Eiffel Tower?
That's the Tokyo Tower.
Oh,
the red
okay.
one. The
The red
Skytree.
one.
The Skytree is kind of more like a cylinder. It kind of looks like what's the tower in Seattle, maybe? The spire thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the 360 in Brighton, the big tower with the...
Yeah, it's got like a globy bit on the top. Yeah, it's like that. And we got to the top, and you walk around it, and all you can see up to the horizon is city.
Wow.
And then, so Tokyo is so big that they have cities within the city. So
so you've talked about like different districts and stuff.
Yeah, so Shibuya, Harajuku, going
and
to
I was
Shinjuku.
sort of like, okay, it's a bit weird. I'm not going to know where these places are, but they are so big that they are basically like little cities.
Basically classified as cities. If
do
you
they
want
have,
to,
do they have different like? I don't even want to know. This is a whole other thing talking about like political and like governors.
They'll have different governors for each of those wards of Tokyo. They call them. I think there's maybe 20 plus wards, maybe. But from the Skytree, you can see like the residentially districts, which are quite flat, and by flat I mean they're still like 3-4 story houses. And then suddenly you'll just see this big spring up of skyscrapers.
Okay.
And they will be grouped together in one area, and then it goes back to being quite flat, and then another big group like pop up, and then you see like the big government building, and then you see the Tokyo Tower, and it's just...
That's crazy, man.
It's insane. And then
I'm just trying to fathom that distance of city. And again, it just feels dystopian. It feels like a world where...
Like Blade Runner or just
exactly,
everyone's crammed into as much space as possible, and they're building up because they can't
keep
building out.
half the population? Over half the population of Japan is in Tokyo?
Probably not half.
What did you say,
125 million. I think maybe 50 to 60 million people live there.
Okay, but it's pushing up.
I'd have to fact check the actual numbers, but definitely.
A lot.
And when you're there and you're looking at it, you suddenly just get hit with this wave of like
insignificance.
Yeah, because it's just that is so many people.
Yeah,
and you look down and you're
crazy.
like, okay, so just I can count maybe that must be at least 50 buildings, and all of them are apartment blocks. So that's going to be at least per building is going to be maybe 50 people. And then suddenly your mind just melts because it's just the sheer quantity of living people in this setting.
You know, something completely random, and I don't know whether people will want to hear about this and talk about this, but something keeps coming up on TikTok. Is this, is it Saudi Arabia or somewhere that are doing this line city?
Line city?
Yeah, have you not seen it crop up?
No.
I'm probably going to like give all the wrong information, but basically it's one of these, it's a bit of a PR stunt for like one of their new eco-cities.
Okay.
And it's basically hundreds of miles of vertical cities between two giant reflective walls, and the cities are built in vertically in tiers, and they are built in almost have you seen In Time?
No.
Oh, we should watch that at some point. That's a cool film. They're built in sort of like communities, little...
Is that the one where they got the time on their hands and they can buy stuff with it?
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
I've not seen it, but it looks good.
Ah, I'm impressed you knew that. No, I love that film. It's cool. It's a cool concept. Yeah, it's a really cool concept. That is a...
We'll have a movie night. We should watch it.
Yeah. Anyway, this is basically a project for 2030. Like they're supposedly building it.
We're actually going to try it.
I've also seen people just pull it apart and say this is not how cities are built. We've had so many things like this that people have tried to do. Doesn't work because the cities happen organically. Blah blah blah. Whatever. But basically, it's just a really... I don't really know where I'm going with this, by the way. But it's just a really... They've got this whole video, and we can watch it at some point. Well, I'll show you it later. And everything was just purpose built in these little blocks of community, and everything was in walking distance, so you could travel from one end to the other in such a short amount of time.
Okay.
I'm imagining Tokyo, not like that, obviously, that's a very specific situation, but just that's where the futurism comes from. Because if you've got a city that big, and this is where like time for transport and travel is so important, because you've got a population of a country there,
and you need to shift them around.
Everyone needs to be
efficiently
around,
as possible,
and it just makes me question, like, obviously that started at some point, and for it to grow that big, like
nobody said stop.
nobody said stop. Well, nobody said let's do it somewhere else.
What's really interesting is that it's actually fairly modern. So during the Second World War, Tokyo was still, for the majority of places, still made of wooden houses, and it was firebombed by the Americans.
That's crazy.
So Tokyo was frequently getting hit with these firebombs that just would wipe out entire neighborhoods and just decimate the buildings. And so once the war was over and they started to recover, they took a leaf out of America's book basically and started to build concrete and started to build up and bringing these high rises. So these have only really existed since the end of the 40s. So 70 odd years worth of building has led to this.
So if there's one thing Japan does excel in, it's infrastructure.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, there was somewhere that was building, like, was it Japan that did the railway through the mountains and stuff?
As in, like, who, like, the first people to do it, or
no, I don't know. I was watching. I think it was Jeremy Clarkson. Was it Top Gear? They went somewhere, and that's also like some of my
stereotypes about Japan come from. Is shows like Top Gear.
Shows like Top Gear where they go and visit places. Although they are pretty good. I like Top Gear when they do the other countries. They're really sort of they'll speak to the natives and they'll sort of, some of it's a bit stereotypical, but you see it on camera, like as they do it, they're traveling from one place. It's raw. It's not. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. I don't know. They were talking about. They had no. It was a country. I don't know if it was Japan or it was somewhere else. They had no trains up until like the 80s.
It was probably Japan because.
And then they had the most trains ever, and like had the best. It was just like the quickest transformation.
Yeah. Well, what happened with Japan was they got the so. The country was sealed and closed for the longest time. No one comes in, no one goes out. The borders are shut. And
how? Why?
Because isolationism. This was back in like the 1800s. Like,
right, okay.
Prior. So from the 1500s to the 1800s, Japan was shut.
So they just had samurais around the border, just
in a big line. That was the job.
Like Tyson. Of course. Yeah.
But then what happened was America turned up with very big gunboats and said, "Open the door, or we will shoot." And Japan went,
"Okay,
yes." And so what they then did is they sent what's called the Iwakura mission. Was they sent 50 scholars and other people to America to try and renegotiate some terms, because Japan was very coal rich. That's why America wanted in, and so they got screwed in the deal because America had bigger guns.
Yes.
And so what then happened was this mission of people travelled across America and then through Europe and basically stole as many ideas as possible from other countries. And the goal
is that a movie?
I hope
that needs to be a movie.
It would be so good, right? And basically what they did is, in every place they went, they got treated to all the culture. They got to go into theatre houses and listen to orchestras and go to the libraries and see how the trams worked and the trains and the transport systems and the factories. And they were most impressed with Britain, because they looked at Britain, who had just kind of kicked into the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
And they went, okay, we want all of this in Japan because that's the fastest way for us to catch up.
Yeah.
And so they got back to Japan and they went, okay, here's our 10-year plan. We need to be, in 10 years' time, we need to be able to be one of the biggest powers in the world. Yeah. And so they did. And then that's when they brought the trains. And that's probably where all the trains came into it. And that's why they started to modernise the entire country. Especially Tokyo. And that's probably
this is why you're here. This is why this works, because you've got stuff like that just like lying in the back of your mind. Yeah, that's cool.
I'm glad I get to use it instead of just like sitting on it.
No, that's fascinating, and that should be a movie. I can just picture like following a couple of these guys
as they experience.
It could even
the entire outside.
Yeah, like it could be even like Scorsese. What's his name? Scorsese.
He definitely could. Scorsese's touched Japan before as well. He's
touched Japan.
He touched it.
Yeah.
He touched Japan every
time.
No,
but you know, maybe not him, but the like Snatch and Lock, Stock, those films where they do multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
Just jumping between different people, like going off and exploring different things, and then sort of coming back to sort of culminate in this sort of like, right, this is our plan.
This is what we do.
And then it's like, you don't show anything. It finishes with like you sort of saying, okay, this is our information, this is where we need to go, and then the credits roll, and you just know that like that is then the future of Japan. Like it's like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Damn right. So when you directing this, when you bankrolling it?
It's 2025 actually.
2025,
yeah, and
nice.
if you want, we're fundraising on the website below.
Check our fundraiser in the description. But there's nothing there.
There's no fundraiser.
It's all good.
I'll just stick a random link in there.
Just link to the Okura Mission Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a quite nice place to kind of cap off.
I do as well, yeah.
Awesome.
That's crazy, man.
One that's happening.
Yeah. So, we'll definitely have to explore that a bit more another time. But
absolutely.
Thank you all for listening.
Thanks so much.
If you want us to keep talking about Japan, then let us know, and we will probably do that because he seems to enjoy it.
I do. I definitely. I like to be able to just splurge about Japan because I appreciate it so much. But if you like what you heard, hit the like button and give us a nice subscribe, maybe. Please
review.
Smash that subscribe button, guys. You know you want
it. Okay.
I did the thing.
Tell a friend. Let them know, then they can watch and listen and sort of.
Maybe you can learn something. Who'd have thought that from?
Yeah. And this is Education with Sam.
Education about Japan.
See you later.
Bye.